This morning I'm going to make a coconut cream pie, and it's one that I just love, but I hate making it because there's so many steps to it. But when you break it down, it's really not that bad. Let me show you how we do that. In a double boiler, in which I've used just a regular pan there and put one over it, I've got about an inch of water in the bottom of that. I'm going to add 5 tablespoonfuls of white sugar and 4 egg yolks. Now I'm going to turn that on a medium heat, and I'm going to whisk this until it's very mixed. And the more you whisk it, the lighter in color it will become. And I want to whisk this until it becomes a creamy, light yellow color. Okay, now we have set our timer for 5 minutes. And that is how long that we have cooked it over the boiling water, stirring continually. And what we're doing is actually cooking that egg yolk without it becoming all lumpy and stuff. So our 5 minutes is up, and I'm going to take that off of my heat. And as you can see, it's sort of a lemony yellow. It's a lighter yellow than that egg yolk yellow that we had going to begin with. It's nice and mixed up. Begin to thicken just a little bit. Turn the water off. I don't need that. I'm taking 1 envelope of unflavored gelatin, and I'm adding it to 2/3 cup of milk. Now gelatin dissolves much better in a cold liquid, so that's why I'm putting it in the milk before I add it to the egg yolk mixture. And now I'm going to add it to that egg yolk mixture. Stir that in really good. Now as it cools, it will begin to thicken up. So the next 2 steps we need to go fairly fast with. I'm going to set this aside. In my big stand mixer, I have placed the 4 egg whites, and I'm going to add to that the salt and cream of tartar. Now with the salt, we only need about 1/8 of a teaspoon. So we're not using a whole lot, and I'm just going to add that even before I begin beating it. And I need 1/8 also of the cream of tartar. That's not very much. Put that down. And I'm going to beat it just until it's kind of frothy. And while those egg whites beat, I'm going to add then my vanilla to my egg yolk over here. I'll need 2 teaspoonfuls. Now you can see that how frosty that is. I'm going to stop this for a minute. It's not holding a peak or anything at all. It's just kind of, it looks like there's just a lot of air bubbles in there. And that's what we want. We're going to turn that back on and I'm going to add 3 tablespoonfuls of sugar, and I'm just going to add it slowly and let that kind of blend in. I want the peaks to be sturdy, but I do not want them to be dry. Now, if your eggs have set out and have become room temperature, it does not take long for this to happen to where that it begins to get thick enough to where it will hold a peak. If they come straight from the refrigerator, you're going to have to beat it longer. And as you can see, that's holding a good peak. I'm going to fold these into my yellow part of my egg yolks. Now the egg yolks have cooled slightly to where they're not real hot, but it's going to be enough to where that it will take the rawness out of the egg white. We're just going to kind of mix that in there. We want it nice and creamy, and you can tell when it's all mixed in there because it will all be a nice lemony yellow color. I'm going to kind of rig up my mixer so that I can mix my next ingredient, which is 2 cups of whipping cream. Now I have this bowl here that has sort of a rubber-like bottom on it. It will not hold by itself. You're still going to have to hold it, but it doesn't slip around quite as much as just a regular bowl. I really like these bowls. I use them a lot. Okay, that is 2 cups of whipping cream. Nothing in it, plain old whipping cream. And we're going to turn that on and begin to mix that. And we want to mix it until it's a nice whipping cream consistency. Okay, my whipped cream is just about done. I have here it's a real apricot jam, and I'm going to take 2 teaspoonfuls and put in the microwave just to thin it down a little bit. And look at that. We could make butter out of that. Boy, if there's one thing I like, it's whipped cream. I have whipped cream in my refrigerator at all times. Anytime I have a recipe that calls for a couple of tablespoonfuls of milk or some kind of a liquid that doesn't take very much, I always add the whipping cream instead. I'm going to put this in the microwave just for 30 seconds. I'm going to take my whipped cream, add that to my egg mixture. You can tell by the ingredients that this is going to be so rich. I might have to lick that off. And then I'm going to mix that in. Now you don't want to beat this. You want to just kind of fold that in. You can use your whisk. Just don't beat it. We want those egg whites and the whipped cream to stay airy and kind of hold it to up high. I tell you, this makes a very impressive pie. But I always just cringe when I look at that recipe because it looks like there's so much to do, but when you break it down, it's really not that bad. All right, we've got that done. Isn't that a pretty lemony color? Okay. I'm going to take my pie crust, which I have pre-baked and cooled. And I'm just gonna dab that apricot jam around in that pie. Now I don't want it saturated because I want my crust to remain a little flaky. But this is kind of a barrier between all that creaminess, and it adds great flavor too. Apricot's one of my favorites. When everybody else is having grape and strawberry on their toast, I'm having apricot on mine. See how pretty that? And if you want, you can put it around the top, just around the edge, because it'll make it kind of shiny. You don't have to do that, but I want to show you how pretty it can be. You don't want much, just enough to give it a little gloss. If it was closed, we'd say bling. Give it a little bling. All right. And now we're going to empty all of this goodness into this crust. Now this is a 9-inch pie pan. And you can see it still fills it up and makes it really full. I bet you're saying, where's the coconut part of it? Well, that unfortunately is the next step. I told you there's a lot of steps to this. I'm going to kind of round that out. Get it even, but not over the crust. And then I kind of like making it pretty. So you want a few swirls in the top. Okay. Now I'm going to put this in the refrigerator and let it begin to chill. It needs to cool at least 2 to 3 hours, and 4 hours is even better. But I'm going to let this chill while I then toast my coconut. Now I've taken 1 3/4 cups of sweetened coconut and just laid it out on my cookie sheet here. And I'm going to put it in a 350-degree oven, and it's going to be in there about 10 to 12 minutes. And I'm going to keep a good eye on it because every now and then you're going to need to kind of stir it so that it's toasty on both sides. Okay, it has been approximately 8 minutes. And I left just a little bit of white on there just because I think it's kind of pretty, the brown and the white together. I'm going to let this cool, and then I will get my pie out of the oven, out of the refrigerator, I mean. And I'm going to sprinkle this on the top of it, and then I will return the pie to the refrigerator to complete cooling. And knowing me, I'm going to check on that pie about every 2 hours to make sure that Michael hasn't gotten him a piece. Okay, it has been 3.5 hours and we're ready to get our pie out and cut. Michael, have you been into this pie?
No.